How Stoicism helps you master your emotions. Practical Guide. Chapter 1. Understanding the battlefield. Your mind and emotions. Have you ever felt like a puppet pulled by invisible strings? Your mood swinging wildly based on the day's events? A passing comment, or even just a fleeting thought. One moment you're calm, the next you're boiling with anger because someone cut you off in traffic. You might be enjoying a peaceful evening, only to have it shattered by a sudden wave of anxiety about a deadline weeks away. Or perhaps you find yourself sinking into sadness, unable to pinpoint the exact cause, feeling adrift in a sea of unwelcome feeling. If any of this sounds familiar, you're not alone. This feeling of being hijacked by our emotions is a near universal human experience. We often talk about emotions as if they are external forces that happen to us, like catching a cold or getting caught in the rain. We fall in love. We are struck by grief. We are overcome with anger. This language reveals a common perception that we are passive recipients of our emotional weather, tossed about by internal storms we can't control. From a biological perspective, there's a kernel of truth here. Our brains are wired for survival. Deep within the temporal lobes lies the amygdala, a small almond-shaped structure constantly scanning our environment for threats. When it perceives danger, real or imagined, it can trigger a rapid cascade of physiological responses, the famous fight or flight reaction. Hormones like adrenaline and cortisol flood our system, our heart rate increases, our breathing quickens, and blood rushes to our muscles. This ancient survival mechanism can kick in before our conscious, rational mind even has a chance to process what's happening. This is why a sudden loud noise can make you jump, or why you might feel a flash of fear before realizing it was just the cat knocking something over. This initial, automatic jolt is part of being human. But here's where the story gets more interesting and where the path to emotional mastery begins. While that initial physiological zap might be automatic, the sustained emotion, the anger that simmers for hours, the anxiety that keeps you up all night, the frustration that ruins your day is often fueled by something else entirely. It's fueled by our interpretation of the event, our beliefs about it, the story we tell ourselves. This is the crucial insight offered by Stoicism, an ancient Greek and Roman philosophy that has experienced a powerful resurgence precisely because it offers such a practical framework for navigating the complexities of modern life. The Stoics, thinkers like Epictetus, Seneca, and Marcus Aurelius, were astute observers of the human condition. They recognized over 2 millennia ago what modern cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, has also confirmed. It's not external events themselves that cause us distress, but our judgments about those events. As Epictetus famously stated, men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them. Let that sink in. The traffic jam isn't inherently anger-inducing. It's the judgment. This is terrible. I'm going to be late. That driver's an idiot. My whole morning is ruined. That creates the anger. Receiving criticism isn't inherently devastating. It's the judgment. This means I'm incompetent. Everyone thinks I'm a failure that leads to feelings of shame or despair. This distinction is profoundly empowering. If external events were the direct cause of our emotions, we would be truly helpless, forever at the mercy of circumstances beyond our control. But if our judgments are the primary driver, then we have found the lever. We cannot always control events, but we can learn to control our interpretations, our judgments, our inner narrative. This is the battlefield, not the external world, but the landscape of our own minds. Understanding this landscape is the first step toward becoming its master, rather than its captive. Before we delve into the specific tools and techniques offered by Stoicism, which we will explore in the next chapter, we need to become more familiar with our own current emotional patterns. Self-awareness is the foundation upon which emotional mastery is built. We cannot change what we do not first acknowledge. Therefore, the first practical step on this journey is to simply observe. We need to gather some baseline data about our own emotional triggers and responses. Practical exercise. Your initial emotional audit. For the next week, commit to becoming a curious observer of your own emotional life. Carry a small notebook, use a notes app on your phone, or create a simple document on your computer. The goal is not to judge yourself or immediately try to change anything, but simply to notice and record. Create 4 columns. 1. Trigger, situation. What event, thought, or circumstance preceded the emotion? Be specific. For example, received critical email from boss, stuck in traffic, thought about upcoming presentation, partner didn't text back. Number 2, initial feelings. What emotions did you primarily feel? For example, anger, anxiety, sadness, frustration, jealousy, joy, relief. List the main ones. 3. Thoughts, judgments. What specific thoughts or interpretations went through your mind? What story did you tell yourself about the situation? For example, he thinks I'm incompetent. This is unfair. I'm going to fail. They don't care about me. This is wonderful. Write down the actual thoughts as best you can recall them. 4. Reaction, behavior. What did you do as a result of the feeling and thoughts? For example, sent a sharp reply, yelled, withdrew and became quiet, procrastinated, smiled and thanked them, took deep breaths. Try to capture at least 1 or 2 entries per day, especially focusing on moments of strong emotional reaction, positive or negative. Remember, this is data collection, not self-criticism. Be honest and as detailed as possible. This simple act of observation begins the process of separating the external event from your internal response. It starts to illuminate the connection between your thoughts and your feelings. By understanding the current state of the battlefield, your mind and its habitual reactions, you are preparing yourself to learn the strategies that will allow you to navigate it with greater skill, calm, and wisdom. In the next chapter, we will begin unpacking the core principles of the Stoic Toolkit, designed precisely for this purpose. Chapter 2. The Stoic Toolkit, Core Principles for Emotional Mastery. In the last chapter, we explored the fundamental insight that our emotional turmoil often stems not directly from external events, but from the judgments and interpretations we attach to them. We recognize that the real battlefield for emotional control lies within our own minds. Now it's time to equip ourselves for that battlefield. Stoicism isn't just a descriptive philosophy, it's a prescriptive one, offering a powerful set of tools, core principles, designed to help us navigate life with greater wisdom, resilience, and tranquility. Think of these principles as the essential components of your mental toolkit for mastering emotions. 1. The dichotomy of control, your circle of power. Perhaps the most foundational and immediately practical tool in the Stoic arsenal is what's often called the dichotomy of control. Epictetus, a former slave who became one of the most influential Stoic teachers, put it with stark clarity at the very beginning of his Enchiridion, or handbook. Some things are up to us, while others are not. Up to us are opinion, motivation, desire, aversion, and, in a word, whatever is of our own doing. Not up to us are our body, our property, reputation, office, and, in a word, whatever is not of our own doing. Let's unpack this. The Stoics argue that our mental energy and peace are finite resources. We squander them whenever we focus our worry, frustration, or desire on things that are ultimately outside our direct influence. Consider the sheer amount of mental energy people expend worrying about the weather, the economy, political outcomes, what other people think of them, or whether they'll get sick. According to the Stoics, all this energy is misplaced because these things fall into the category of not up to us. We might influence them indirectly, but we don't have final, absolute control. Trying to exert absolute control over the uncontrollable is a guaranteed recipe for frustration, anxiety, and disappointment. Conversely, what is exclusively and completely up to us? Our inner world. Our judgments, opinions, how we interpret events. Our motivations, impulses, what we choose to pursue or move towards. Our desires, what we value and seek. Our aversions, what we dislike and try to avoid. Our assent, whether we agree with an initial impression or thought. Our actions, the choices we make based on our judgments and motivations. This is our circle of power. The Stoics urge us to concentrate our efforts exclusively within this circle. Does this mean we become passive? Not at all. It means we act virtuously and rationally within our sphere of control and accept the outcomes, whatever they may be, with equanimity. Because the outcome itself was never entirely up to us. If you prepare diligently for an exam, up to you, that's where your focus should be. The actual grade you receive, influenced by the questions asked, the grader's mood, etc., is ultimately not fully up to you. Worrying excessively about the grade after doing your best preparation is wasted energy. Focusing on giving your best effort is the Stoic approach. This principle alone, consistently applied, can dramatically reduce anxiety and frustration. 2. Living according to nature, aligning with reason. When the Stoics talk about living according to nature, they don't mean running wild in the woods. They had a specific understanding of nature, particularly human nature. They observed that what distinguishes humans from other animals is our capacity for reason. Therefore, living according to nature means living according to reason. It means using our rational faculties to understand the world as it is, to make sound judgments, and to act in ways that are beneficial to ourselves and the human community, as they also saw humans as inherently social creatures. How does this relate to emotions? Uncontrolled, excessive emotions, what the Stoics called pathe, often translated as passions, like intense anger, crippling fear, or consuming envy, were seen as arising from faulty reasoning, incorrect judgments about what is good or bad. Living according to reason means examining these judgments, correcting them, and striving to respond to situations with clarity and purpose, rather than being swept away by irrational emotional tides. It's about letting your rational mind guide your actions, not your knee-jerk reactions. 3. Virtue is the sole good. Redefining your priorities. This is perhaps the most challenging, yet ultimately liberating Stoic principle. The Stoics argued that the only thing that is truly good in an absolute sense is virtue, and the only thing truly bad is vice, the opposite of virtue. Everything else, health, wealth, reputation, pain, pleasure, life, death, falls into the category of indifference. Now, they weren't naive. They acknowledged that some indifferent things are naturally preferred, like health over sickness, wealth over poverty, and others are dispreferred, like pain over pleasure. It's natural to prefer health, but the crucial point is that possessing these preferred indifference does not determine whether you are living a good, fulfilling life, a state they called eudaimonia. Similarly, experiencing dispreferred indifference doesn't prevent you from living virtuously. Virtue, for the Stoics, is expressed through 4 cardinal qualities: wisdom, understanding the world correctly, distinguishing good, bad, and indifferent; justice, treating others fairly and with kindness, fulfilling our social duties; courage, facing difficulty, pain, or danger with resilience and integrity; temperance, moderation, self-control, mastering our desires and appetites. If virtue is the only true good, and it resides entirely within our circle of control, our choices, judgments, actions, then our happiness and fulfillment become immune to the whims of fortune. We can lose our job, our health, our reputation, but we can never be forced to lose our virtue. This radically shifts our emotional landscape. If losing wealth isn't truly bad, only dispreferred, then the anxiety surrounding financial insecurity diminishes. If gaining others' approval isn't truly good, only preferred, then the fear of criticism loses its sting. Our emotional stability becomes anchored to our character, not our circumstances. 4. Assenting to impressions. The pause button. Building on the idea that judgments cause emotions, the Stoics paid close attention to impressions, fantasiae, the raw data that comes into our minds from our senses or our thoughts. It looks like it's raining. My heart is pounding. That person just insulted me. An impression isn't yet an emotion, it's the precursor. The crucial step happens next. Assent. Assent is when we agree with the impression, when we accept it as true and incorporate it into a judgment. It looks like it's raining, and that's terrible because my picnic will be ruined. My heart is pounding, which means I'm definitely going to fail this presentation. That person insulted me, and that's an outrage that requires retaliation. The Stoic practice is to insert a pause between impression and assent. When a potentially upsetting impression arises, don't immediately accept it. Step back, examine it. Ask, Impression, are you what you appear to be? Are you based on reality or on a distorted view? Is the judgment you imply aligned with reason and virtue? This pause allows our rational mind to engage, preventing us from being immediately hijacked by an emotional reaction based on a potentially flawed initial take. Practical exercise. Sorting your concerns. Let's put the dichotomy of control into practice. Consider the following common scenarios. For each one, take a few minutes to list specific aspects that are within your control and specific aspects that are outside your control. Scenario 1. You have an important job interview next week. Within your control. Researching the company, preparing answers. Practicing, choosing your outfit. Getting enough sleep beforehand. Deciding to be honest and courteous. Managing your self-talk. Outside your control. The interviewer's mood. The specific questions asked. Who the other candidates are. The company's internal hiring needs, the final hiring decision. Scenario 2. You had an argument with a close friend and things are tense. Within your control. Reflecting on your part in the argument, deciding whether to apologize, choosing your words carefully if you reach out, listening to their perspective, managing your anger or defensiveness. Outside your control. Whether your friend accepts your apology, how they interpret your actions, whether they choose to reconcile their underlying feelings. Scenario 3. You are worried about recent drops in the stock market affecting your savings. Within your control. Reviewing your financial plan, adjusting your budget, deciding on your long-term investment strategy with advice, managing your panic or fear-based impulses to sell. Outside your control. Daily market fluctuations, global economic events, company performances, overall market sentiment. Scenario 4. You receive some concerning results from a routine health checkup. Within your control. Seeking further medical advice, following prescribed treatments, adopting healthier lifestyle habits, diet, exercise, managing your anxiety about the future, educating yourself about the condition, outside your control, the underlying biological process, the ultimate prognosis, the side effects of medication, genetic predispositions. Notice how shifting your focus primarily to the within your control column instantly makes the situation feel more manageable and less overwhelming. It directs your energy toward productive action rather than helpless worry. These 4 principles, the dichotomy of control, living according to nature, reason, virtue as the sole good, and pausing before assent form the bedrock of the Stoic approach to life and emotional regulation. They are not quick fixes, but fundamental shifts in perspective that, when practiced consistently, build a resilient and tranquil inner citadel. In the chapters that follow, we will see how these tools are applied specifically to decode and manage the challenging emotions we all face. Chapter 3. Decoding your feelings. It's not the event, it's your judgment. In the previous chapter, we unpacked the essential tools in the Stoic toolkit. The dichotomy of control, the importance of living according to reason, the radical idea that virtue is the sole good, and the crucial practice of pausing before assenting to initial impressions. These principles provide the framework, the foundational understanding needed to start reshaping our emotional landscape. Now we delve into the very heart of the mechanism, the judgments themselves. This chapter is about learning to decode the specific thoughts and beliefs that trigger our emotional responses and acquiring techniques to challenge and transform them. We must constantly remind ourselves of the central Stoic tenet we explored earlier. Events themselves are neutral. It is our interpretation, our judgment, that gives them emotional significance. Rain is just precipitation. It's our judgment, my day is ruined, that causes distress. A critical comment is just words. It's our judgment, this proves I'm inadequate, that causes pain. This understanding shifts the focus from trying to change the world, often impossible, to changing our inner response, always possible. Passions versus healthy emotions. Not all feelings are created equal. It's important to clarify that Stoicism isn't about becoming an emotionless robot. The Stoics weren't aiming for apathy in the modern sense of listless indifference. Instead, they made a crucial distinction between two categories of emotions. 1. Pathy, passions. These are the excessive, irrational, and disturbing emotions that arise from false judgments that misidentify what is truly good or bad. Examples include intense anger, crippling fear, consuming envy, debilitating grief, and irrational craving. These passions disrupt our reason, cloud our judgment, and prevent us from acting virtuously. They are seen as mental disturbances, akin to diseases of the soul. 2. Eupathia, good healthy emotions. These arise from correct judgments aligned with reason and virtue. They are rational, appropriate responses to the world as it truly is. The Stoics identified three main categories: rational joy, kara, experienced from contemplating virtue and acting virtuously; rational caution, eulabeia, a reasoned avoidance of vice or acting unvirtuously, distinct from irrational fear of externals; rational wishing, willing, boulesis, a desire for virtue and the good of others, aligned with reason, distinct from irrational craving for externals. The goal of Stoic practice, therefore, isn't to eliminate all feeling, but to diminish and ultimately eradicate the destructive passions by correcting the faulty judgments that fuel them, and to cultivate the eupathia, healthy emotions, that stem from a clear, rational, and virtuous understanding of the world. How specific judgments create specific emotions. Let's look at how this works in practice. Negative emotions reliably follow specific patterns of judgment. Anger, frustration, often arises from the judgment that something bad and contrary to our will is happening right now, often coupled with a sense that it shouldn't be happening or that someone is acting unjustly towards us. Judgment. This traffic jam is unfairly delaying me and shouldn't exist. Anxiety/fear typically stems from the judgment that something bad or threatening is likely to happen in the future and that we won't be able to cope. Judgment. I might fail this presentation and the consequences will be disastrous. Sadness, distress. often follows the judgment that something good has been lost or something bad has occurred in the past or present, and that this loss or event is truly detrimental. Judgment. Losing that job means my future prospects are ruined. Envy/jealousy arises from the judgment that someone else possesses something good that we lack, often combined with the judgment that their possession is unfair or diminishes us. Judgment. They got the promotion I deserved. It's unjust and it makes me feel inadequate. Craving, irrational desire, stems from the judgment that possessing some external thing, wealth, status, a specific object, another person's affection, is necessary for our happiness or well-being. Judgment. I absolutely need that new phone to feel good about myself. Recognizing these patterns is the first step toward dismantling them. When you feel a strong negative emotion rising, ask yourself, what specific judgment is fueling this feeling? Techniques for identifying and challenging judgments. Once you start identifying the judgments behind your emotions, you need techniques to challenge their validity and replace them with more rational, helpful ones. Here are some key Stoic-inspired methods. 1. Socratic questioning. Named after Socrates, who constantly questioned assumptions, this involves interrogating your automatic thoughts. Is this judgment objectively true? What is the hard evidence for and against it? Are there alternative ways to view this situation? Could someone else see it differently? Is this judgment based on fact or feeling? Am I assuming my feeling reflects reality? What are the consequences of holding the belief? Is it helping or harming me? Even if the worst happens, could I cope? Linking to the dichotomy of control and courage. Is this judgment aligned with my values and virtue? Is reacting this way truly wise, just, courageous, or temperate? 2. Cognitive distancing. Create space between yourself and your thoughts. Instead of thinking, this situation is unbearable, try, I am having the thought that this situation is unbearable. This simple shift reminds you that a thought is just a mental event, not necessarily an objective fact. You can observe the thought without automatically buying into it. 3. Reframing. Actively search for and adopt alternative interpretations that are more rational, constructive, or aligned with Stoic principles. Challenge. Catastrophizing. Instead of this mistake will ruin everything, try, this was a mistake and it's unpleasant, but it's an opportunity to learn and demonstrate responsibility by fixing it. Apply the dichotomy of control. Instead of I'm furious they didn't choose my proposal, try, their decision was outside my control. My control lies in how I react, learn from this, and prepare for the next opportunity. Focus on virtue. Instead of I hate feeling anxious, try, feeling anxiety is unpleasant but ultimately indifferent. What matters is whether I act with courage and reason despite the feeling. Teacher 4. Objective language. Stripping away value judgments. Practice describing events in neutral, factual terms, as Marcus Aurelius often did in his meditations. He famously described fine Falernian wine as just fermented grape juice, and a purple robe as sheep's wool dyed with shellfish gore. This isn't cynicism, It's a technique to see things as they are without the layer of value judgment that triggers excessive emotion. Instead of my boss launched a vicious attack on my work, try describing it objectively. During the meeting, my boss pointed out 3 errors in the report and stated they needed correction. This neutral description makes it easier to respond rationally rather than emotionally. Practical exercise, the judgment journal. This exercise builds upon the emotional audit from Chapter 1. It helps you systematically practice identifying, challenging, and reframing your judgments. Set up your journal, digital or physical, with these columns. 1. Situation/trigger. Briefly describe the event or thought that triggered the emotion. For example, received vague critical feedback. 2. Initial feelings. Note the primary emotion. For example, anxiety, defensiveness. 3. Automatic judgments. Write down the specific thoughts, interpretations that came to mind. For example, they think I'm incompetent. I'm going to get fired. This is unfair criticism. 4. Challenge/questioning. Apply Socratic questioning to the automatic judgments. For example, is there evidence I'm incompetent or just that this piece of work needs revision? Is it certain I'll get fired over this? Is there any potentially valid point in the feedback, even if poorly delivered? What is within my control here? 5. Alternative rational judgment. Formulate a more balanced, objective, and stoic-aligned judgment. For example, the feedback was vague and unpleasant, dispreferred, but my competence isn't defined by one comment. My control lies in seeking clarification and improving the work virtuously. Getting fired is unlikely based on this alone. 6. Optional. Resulting feeling. Note any shift in your emotional state after challenging and reframing. For example, reduced anxiety, increased sense of control/calm. Do this regularly, especially after strong emotional reactions. Don't expect perfection immediately. This is a skill that, like any other, improves with consistent practice. By diligently decoding the judgments that underpin your feelings, questioning their validity, and consciously choosing more rational alternatives, you begin to actively rewire your emotional responses. You move from being a passive victim of your feelings to becoming an active architect of your inner peace. The following chapters will take these techniques and apply them to specific, challenging emotions, starting with anger and frustration. Chapter 4. Taming the Fire Stoic Strategies for Anger and Frustration. Of all the emotions that can hijack our reason and disrupt our peace, anger often feels like the most volatile, the most potent. It flares up quickly, burns hot, and can leave a trail of regrettable words and actions in its wake. Road rage, explosive arguments, simmering resentment, passive-aggressive jabs anger manifests in countless ways, often causing harm both to ourselves and to those around us. In the previous chapter, we learned to decode our feelings by examining the underlying judgments. Now we turn our attention to anger, perhaps the most destructive of the Stoic passions, and explore practical Stoic strategies to tame this inner fire. The Roman Stoic philosopher Seneca the Younger wrote an entire treatise on anger, De Ira, highlighting its dangers. He famously called anger a temporary madness and argued forcefully that it is never useful or justified, even when responding to perceived injustice. Why such a strong stance? Because the Stoics saw anger as fundamentally irrational. It arises from a cluster of faulty judgments. Judgment of harm. We judge that we, or something we value, have been harmed or wronged significantly. Judgment of intent/injustice. We often judge that this harm was inflicted unfairly, improperly, or maliciously. Judgment of retaliation. We judge that lashing out, retaliating, or expressing intense displeasure is a necessary or appropriate response. These judgments, according to Stoicism, are typically flawed. We often overestimate the harm done, especially when it relates to indifference like reputation or convenience. We assume negative intent where there might be ignorance or carelessness. And crucially, we believe that the fiery, reason-clouding response of anger will somehow rectify the situation when it almost always makes things worse, damaging relationships and destroying our own tranquility. Anger narrows our focus, shuts down empathy, and prevents the clear, rational thought needed for constructive solutions. Applying the dichotomy of control to irritation. The dichotomy of control, our foundational tool from Chapter 2, is incredibly powerful when dealing with anger triggers. So much of what typically angers us lies firmly outside our direct control. Other drivers' behavior, delayed flights or appointments, technical glitches, the opinions or actions of colleagues, family members, or strangers, spilled coffee, bad weather, noisy neighbors. When you feel anger rising in response to such events, consciously ask yourself, is the trigger for this anger something that is truly up to me? In almost all cases involving external events or other people's actions, the answer will be no. Recognizing this is the first step to disarming the anger. Why waste your precious inner peace raging against something you cannot command? Instead, immediately shift your focus to what is within your control. Your interpretation of the event. Is this truly a catastrophe or just an inconvenience? Your choice of response. Will I lash out or will I pause and breathe? Your actions moving forward. How can I address the situation calmly and rationally if action is needed? Maintaining your own character and integrity. Will I let this external event degrade my inner state? By consistently redirecting your focus from the uncontrollable trigger to your controllable response, you starve the anger of its fuel. Stoic techniques for anger management. Beyond the dichotomy of control, the Stoics offered specific techniques to handle anger in the moment and reduce its frequency over time. 1. The strategic pause. This cannot be overemphasized. When you feel the heat of anger rising, stop. Do not speak. Do not act immediately. Seneca advised, the greatest remedy for anger is delay. Create a space between the trigger, impression, and your response, assent. Use this pause to take deep breaths, count to 10 or 100 if needed, or physically remove yourself from the situation temporarily if possible. This pause allows the initial physiological surge to subside slightly and creates an opportunity for your rational mind to re-engage. 2. Cognitive distancing. Questioning the stakes. In the heat of the moment, the object of our anger often seems immensely important. Use the pause to challenge this perception. Ask yourself, is this really worth sacrificing my tranquility and peace of mind? In 1 week, 1 month, 1 year, how much will this specific incident truly matter? Employing the view from above. Will getting angry actually improve the situation, or will it likely escalate things or create new problems? What would my ideal self, the wise, virtuous person I aspire to be, do in this situation? 3. Reframing perspectives. Seeking understanding, not agreement. Challenge the judgments fueling the anger. Instead of assuming malice, consider alternative explanations. Even if you don't agree with the other person's actions, could their actions stem from ignorance, fear, stress, or their own flawed judgments, rather than a direct desire to harm you? Remember, Stoics believe people don't willingly do wrong, but act out of mistaken beliefs about what is good. Can you reframe this annoyance as an opportunity to practice patience, tolerance, or understanding, seeing it as training for your character? Can you find any shred of logic, however flawed, in the other person's perspective? This doesn't mean condoning wrongdoing, but understanding the source can diffuse anger. 4. Premeditation of annoyances. Just as we can prepare for major hardships, premeditatio malorum, we can prepare for daily irritations. Think about your common anger triggers: the commute, a specific colleague's habits, slow internet, waiting in line. Before you encounter them, mentally rehearse a calm, stoic response. Visualize yourself encountering the trigger and choosing to pause. Apply the dichotomy of control and respond rationally. This preparation reduces the element of surprise and makes a reasoned response more likely when the trigger actually occurs. Dealing with perceived injustice. What about righteous anger? What if you have been genuinely wronged or witnessed a true injustice? Stoicism does not advocate for passive acceptance of harm or injustice. Virtue, particularly justice, demands that we act against wrongdoing when appropriate. However, the Stoics argue that we should do so from a place of calm reason, firm principle, and strategic action, not blinding rage. Destructive anger hinders rather than helps the pursuit of justice. It leads to poor decision-making, alienates potential allies, and can make us act unjustly ourselves in retaliation. The Stoic approach is to objectively assess the situation, using reason, not passion. Determine what actions are virtuous and within your control to address the injustice. Act decisively and courageously based on principle. Accept the outcome, knowing you acted virtuously within your sphere of control, regardless of whether the external situation changes exactly as you wished. Focus on fixing the problem or upholding principle rather than indulging in the ultimately unhelpful passion of anger. Practical exercise. Your anger response plan. Knowledge is useful, but practice is key. Let's create a personalized plan for your common anger triggers. 1. Identify 3-5 specific situations, people, or thoughts that reliably trigger your anger or frustration. Be honest and specific. 2. For each trigger, write down your typical automatic judgments. For example, they are incompetent. This is deliberately disrespectful. This shouldn't be happening. 3. Now design your Stoic response plan for each trigger. Incorporate the techniques we've discussed. Immediate action. For example, pause, take 5 deep breaths, leave the room for 2 minutes, say, I need a moment to think about this. Challenge questions. For example, is this truly worth my peace? What is within my control here? Is there another explanation? Rational reframe. For example, this is annoying but ultimately insignificant. Perhaps they are stressed, unaware. This is a chance to practice patience. Controllable action, if needed. For example, politely state my need boundary. Focus on my own work. Send a calm follow-up email later. Affirmation. For example, my inner peace is my priority. I choose reason over rage. Keep this plan handy on your phone in your journal and review it regularly. When a trigger occurs, try consciously implementing your plan. Don't expect perfection, especially at first. Simply making the effort to respond differently is progress. Taming the fire of anger is a vital part of mastering your emotions. It requires vigilance, self-awareness, and consistent application of these Stoic principles. By refusing to assent to anger-inducing judgments and choosing reasoned responses instead, you protect your inner tranquility and act more effectively in the world. In the next chapter, we will turn our attention to another pair of powerful emotions, anxiety and fear. Chapter 5. Dissolving anxiety and fear, embracing uncertainty, the Stoic way. If anger is the fiery explosion often directed at the present or past, anxiety and fear are its forward-looking cousins, the chilling specters that haunt our thoughts about what might happen. In a world filled with uncertainty, from personal health and finances to global events, it's easy to feel adrift in a sea of worry. Anxiety, that diffuse sense of unease about potential threats, and fear, the more focused reaction to a specific perceived danger, are rampant in modern society. Like anger, the Stoics viewed these as disruptive passions rooted in faulty judgments, specifically judgments about the future. This chapter explores the Stoic approach to dissolving anxiety and fear, not by seeking impossible certainty, but by embracing uncertainty with reason and resilience. At their core, anxiety and fear are fueled by 2 primary judgments. 1. Judgment of future harm. We believe that something bad, undesirable, or threatening might happen in the future. 2. Judgment of incapacity. We believe that if this bad thing does happen, we won't be able to cope with it. The consequences will be unbearable or catastrophic. Notice the focus on possibility and prediction. Our minds project into the future, conjure negative scenarios, and then react now as if those scenarios are already reality or inevitable disasters. This is often where the dichotomy of control gets completely abandoned. We expend enormous mental energy worrying about future events that haven't happened and may never happen, and which are often largely outside our direct control. Furthermore, we tend to drastically underestimate our own inherent resilience and capacity to handle difficulty. The Stoics offered powerful tools to counteract these fear-inducing judgments and cultivate inner fortitude in the face of uncertainty. 1. Negative visualization. Premeditatio malorum, rehearsing for resilience. This might sound counterintuitive. If we're anxious about bad things happening, why would we deliberately think about them? The Stoic practice of premeditatio malorum, premeditation of evils or difficulties, is not about morbid wallowing. It's a rational, strategic rehearsal designed to build psychological resilience and increase appreciation for the present. By calmly and deliberately contemplating potential future hardships, illness, financial loss, the loss of loved ones, professional setbacks before they happen, we achieve several crucial benefits. Reduced shock value. Familiarity lessens impact. If we've already considered the possibility of a negative event, it won't hit us with the same paralyzing shock if it actually occurs. We've mentally practiced. Increased confidence in coping. As we contemplate these scenarios, we can also contemplate how we might respond virtuously. How could we exercise courage, wisdom, justice, or temperance even in difficult circumstances? This process often reveals that even worst-case scenarios are, perhaps, survivable, and that we possess inner resources we hadn't acknowledged. Enhanced gratitude. Contrasting potential loss with present reality highlights how much we actually have right now. Thinking about the possibility of illness can make us deeply grateful for our current health. Contemplating the loss of relationships can deepen our appreciation for the people in our lives today. This gratitude is a powerful antidote to anxiety's focus on potential lack. Motivation for prudent action. Premeditation can spur us to take rational, preventative actions within our control. Contemplating financial difficulty might motivate us to save more diligently. Thinking about illness might encourage healthier habits. How to practice. Set aside 5 to 10 minutes regularly, perhaps daily or weekly. Calmly bring to mind potential difficulties relevant to your life. Don't dwell on the emotional pain, but focus on the practicalities. What might happen? How could I respond virtuously? What resources, inner and outer, could I draw upon? Crucially, always end the session by returning your focus to the present moment and expressing gratitude for what you currently have that you might otherwise take for granted. 2. Focusing on the present moment. Prosos, where life happens. Anxiety lives in the future. It thrives on what-ifs and hypothetical catastrophes. The Stoic concept of prosos, continuous mindfulness, attention, and vigilance directed toward one's thoughts, judgments, and actions in the present moment, is a direct countermeasure. The past is gone, and the future is yet to arrive. The only time we truly live, experience, and act is right now. Worrying about the future doesn't change it. It only steals the energy and focus we need to navigate the present effectively and virtuously. When anxious thoughts about the future arise, gently but firmly bring your attention back to the here and now. Focus on your breath for a minute. Engage fully in the task at hand, whatever it is: washing dishes, writing an email, talking to someone. Notice the physical sensations in your body or the details of your immediate environment. This isn't about ignoring potential future challenges, but about grounding yourself in the only time frame where you have agency. Your actions now are what shape the future, and those actions are best performed with a clear, present mind. 3. accepting what you cannot change. Amor fati, loving your fate. This is a profound and challenging Stoic ideal. Amor fati, the love of fate. It goes beyond mere acceptance or tolerance of events outside our control. It suggests an active embrace, even a welcoming, of whatever happens, seeing it as necessary or even beneficial within the larger context of existence, the logos or rational order of the universe in Stoic cosmology. For practical purposes, think of it as fully accepting reality as it unfolds, especially after you have acted virtuously within your sphere of control. If you prepared diligently for the presentation within your control, but still didn't get the desired reaction outside your control, amor fati means accepting that outcome without bitterness or resentment. It counters the anxiety-producing judgment, "This shouldn't be happening," by affirming, "This is happening, and I will work with it." This acceptance frees up enormous mental energy previously consumed by fighting reality. It allows us to ask constructive questions like, given that this has happened, what is the most rational and virtuous way forward? It fosters resilience by allowing us to find opportunity or lessons even in adversity. 4. Productive planning versus unproductive. Worry, discerning the difference. The Stoic approach doesn't forbid thinking about the future. It forbids irrational worry about it. There's a crucial difference between productive planning and unproductive worry. Productive planning identifies potential future challenges, assesses what aspects are within your control, involves taking concrete, rational steps now to prepare, mitigate risk, or increase readiness. It's action-oriented and empowering. For example, to prepare for potential job loss, I will update my resume and start networking now. Unproductive worry involves repetitive, often catastrophic, thinking about future possibilities, especially those outside your control, without leading to constructive action. It's mental churn that increases anxiety and paralysis. For example, constantly thinking, what if I get laid off, without taking any preparatory steps? When thoughts about the future arise, ask, is this thought leading to useful action within my control, or is it just feeding anxiety? If it's the latter, gently redirect your mind using the techniques above. Practical exercises. 1. Daily negative visualization. 5 minds. As described above, make this a regular practice. Choose a potential difficulty, calmly consider your virtuous response and coping resources, and end with gratitude for the present. 2. Fear setting. This exercise helps dissect vague fears into manageable components. Take a specific fear, for example, fear of asking for a raise, fear of starting a difficult conversation, fear of pursuing a new project. Define. What exactly is the fear? What action are you avoiding? Worst-case scenarios. What are the absolute worst things that could realistically happen if you took the action? List them. Prevention. What steps could you take now to minimize the likelihood of those worst-case scenarios happening or decrease their impact? Repair. If the worst-case scenarios did happen, what specific steps could you take to recover or mitigate the damage? Who could you ask for help? Benefits of action. What are the potential benefits, even partial ones, of taking this action. Consider emotional, financial, physical, etc. Cost of inaction. What will it cost you emotionally, financially, physically, in terms of lost opportunities? If you don't take this action, be specific. Consider 6 months, 1 year, 3 years from now. Often, clearly defining the fear and realizing you could likely repair even the worst-case scenario, combined with seeing the high cost of inaction, significantly reduces the fear's power. Dissolving anxiety and fear, the Stoic way, involves a combination of rational preparation for the future, negative visualization, planning, mindful engagement with the present, prosochi, and radical acceptance of the uncontrollable, amor fati. By consistently applying these principles and practices, you build an inner fortress of resilience capable of weathering life's inevitable uncertainties with greater calm and courage. Next, we'll explore how Stoicism addresses the often heavy emotions of sadness and disappointment. Chapter 6. Handling Sadness and Disappointment. Finding Resilience in Loss. Life inevitably brings moments of loss, setbacks, and plans gone awry. We lose loved ones, face professional disappointments, experience relationship breakdowns, or simply watch our hopes and expectations crumble. Sadness, grief, and disappointment are natural human responses to these experiences. Unlike the fiery outward energy of anger or the forward-looking tension of anxiety, these emotions often feel heavy, pulling us inward or downward, centered on a perceived lack or failure in the present or past. While Stoicism doesn't promise a life free from painful events, it offers a powerful framework for navigating these difficult emotions with resilience, perspective, and enduring inner strength. It teaches us not to deny our pain, but to understand its roots and manage our response in a way that preserves our core well-being. The Stoic view: grief, loss, and faulty judgments. It's a misconception that Stoics aim to be unfeeling statues. Seneca, for instance, wrote moving letters of consolation acknowledging the pain of grief. However, the Stoics distinguish between the natural initial shock or sadness following a loss, a first movement, largely involuntary, and the prolonged, excessive, soul-crushing grief or despair they classified as a pathos, specifically the passion of distress. This destructive form of sadness, they argued, stems from specific faulty judgments, judging an indifferent as truly bad. We judge that we have lost something truly good, like a loved one, health, status, wealth, and that this loss is inherently bad and detrimental to our core happiness, eudaimonia. While these things are naturally preferred, Stoicism reminds us that the only true good is virtue, and the only true bad is vice. Losing a preferred indifferent is painful and regrettable, but it does not destroy our capacity to live virtuously and find meaning. Judging the loss is unbearable. We judge that we cannot possibly cope with the loss or disappointment, that life is fundamentally diminished or ruined without the thing or person we lost. This underestimates our own resilience and ignores our inner resources. Judging reality is wrong. We implicitly or explicitly judge that this loss or disappointment shouldn't have happened, railing against reality itself. By identifying and challenging these underlying judgments, we can begin to loosen the grip of overwhelming sadness and find a path toward acceptance and peace, even amidst difficult circumstances. The role of attachment and expectations. Much of our disappointment arises from two related sources: excessive attachment and rigid expectations. No, attachment. When we become overly attached to external things, people, possessions, outcomes, status, we invest our happiness in things that are ultimately outside our full control and inherently transient. The stronger the attachment, the greater the pain when loss inevitably occurs. Stoicism encourages a healthy appreciation for preferred indifference, but warns against clinging to them as if they were essential for our well-being. Expectations. When we hold rigid expectations about how life should unfold, how others should behave, or what outcomes we deserve, we set ourselves up for disappointment whenever reality deviates from our blueprint. Flexible, realistic expectations, combined with a focus on our own virtuous actions rather than specific outcomes, reduce the frequency and intensity of disappointment. Applying the dichotomy of control to setbacks. When faced with disappointment, a failed project, a rejection, a relationship ending, the dichotomy of control is your anchor. Ask yourself, what aspects of this situation were truly within my control? Usually your effort, preparation, choices, intentions, reactions. What aspects were outside my control? Often the final outcome, other people's decisions, external circumstances, luck. Dwelling on the uncontrollable outcome, I should have gotten that job, fuels frustration and sadness. Shifting focus to the controllable response. What can I learn from this interview process? How can I improve my skills for the next time? How can I handle this rejection with grace and resilience? Empowers you and directs your energy productively. Acknowledge the disappointment regarding the outcome, a dispreferred indifferent, but place your sense of worth and focus on your virtuous response within your control. Finding the opportunity within adversity. This is a cornerstone of Stoic resilience, viewing challenges not merely as obstacles to be endured, but as opportunities to practice and demonstrate virtue. Marcus Aurelius famously wrote about how the rational mind can convert obstacles into fuel, much like fire consumes whatever is thrown onto it. When faced with loss or disappointment, instead of asking, "Why me?" the Stoic asks, "How can I use this situation to practice courage, facing the pain without crumbling? How can I use this to practice wisdom, learning from the experience, understanding impermanence? How can I use this to practice justice, treating others fairly even when hurting, fulfilling duties? How can I use this to practice temperance, moderating grief, avoiding excessive wallowing?" This reframes adversity. It doesn't eliminate the pain, but it gives it purpose. The setback becomes raw material for building character, strengthening your inner citadel. It transforms you from a passive victim of circumstance into an active agent forging virtue out of hardship. Cultivating gratitude for what remains. In times of loss or disappointment, our minds naturally tend to focus on what is missing. This magnifies a sense of lack and fuels sadness. Stoicism actively counters this tendency through the practice of gratitude. Even in the darkest times, there are things that remain. Basic necessities: shelter, food, water, other relationships, aspects of your health, your capacity for reason and choice, your inner citadel. Simple pleasures: a sunrise, a moment of quiet, lessons learned from past experiences. Consciously directing your attention to what you still have, rather than solely on what you've lost, provides perspective and ballast. It reminds you that loss, while painful, rarely obliterates everything of value. This practice, especially when combined with negative visualization, which highlights the value of things by contemplating their absence, can significantly lessen the weight of sadness and foster contentment even amidst difficulty. Practical exercise: reflective journaling on disappointment. Choose a past disappointment or setback that still carries some emotional weight. Use your journal to reflect on it through a Stoic lens. Answer the following prompts. 1. Objective description: describe the event or situation as factually and neutrally as possible, without emotional language or value judgments. For example, my application for X position was not successful. 2. Initial feelings: what were the primary emotions you felt at the time? For example, sadness, disappointment, frustration, inadequacy. 3. Underlying judgments: what specific thoughts or beliefs fueled those feelings? For example, this means I'm not good enough. My hard work was wasted. Things never work out for me. This shouldn't have happened. 4. Dichotomy of control: what aspects of the situation and outcome were within your control? What aspects were outside your control? Where did you focus most of your energy then? Where could you focus it now? 5. Challenge judgments: examine the judgments you listed. Were they entirely true? Did they mistake a preferred indifferent for an essential good? Were they rational and helpful? 6. Reframing as opportunity: how did this experience serve as an opportunity to practice virtue, courage, wisdom, resilience, etc.? What lessons were learned? Did it lead to any unexpected positive changes or growth down the line? 7. Gratitude: despite the disappointment, what remained? What aspects of your life, skills, relationships, or inner resources could you still be grateful for then? What can you be grateful for now, looking back? Repeat this exercise for different past disappointments. It's a way to process lingering feelings, extract wisdom, and strengthen your resilience muscles for future challenges. Handling sadness and disappointment. Stoically isn't about suppressing feelings, but about understanding them, challenging the irrational judgments that amplify them, focusing on our virtuous response, finding growth in hardship, and maintaining perspective through gratitude. It's about building an inner resilience that allows us to navigate life's inevitable losses without losing our fundamental peace. Next, we'll turn to another common source of emotional disturbance: dealing with difficult people. Chapter 7: Navigating Relationships. Dealing with difficult people stoically. Humans are social creatures. Our relationships are often the source of our greatest joys, support, and sense of belonging. Yet they can also be the source of significant emotional turmoil. Misunderstandings, conflicts, differing expectations, and encounters with people whose behavior we find frustrating, unfair, or simply baffling. These are unavoidable aspects of interacting with others. Whether it's a demanding boss, a critical family member, an unreliable friend, or just a rude stranger, knowing how to navigate these interactions without losing our inner peace is crucial for emotional mastery. Stoicism provides a robust framework for doing exactly that, shifting our focus from trying to change others to mastering ourselves. The unshakable foundation, dichotomy of control and relationships. If there is one principle to tattoo onto your mind when dealing with other people, it's the dichotomy of control. Let's state it plainly in this context. Outside your control, other people's thoughts, feelings, opinions, words, actions, choices, values, moods, beliefs, and judgments. Within your control, your own thoughts, judgments, interpretations, intentions, choices, words, actions, and emotional responses. So much interpersonal frustration stems from violating this fundamental principle. We get angry because someone doesn't see things our way. We feel hurt because someone doesn't appreciate us as we think they should. We become anxious trying to make someone like us or agree with us. We exhaust ourselves trying to force others to meet our expectations. This is all energy poured into the uncontrollable, a guaranteed path to emotional disturbance. The Stoic approach radically shifts the focus inward. When faced with difficult behavior, the primary questions become, how can I respond virtuously? What judgments am I making about this situation? What actions are within my power to take that align with reason and justice? This doesn't mean you don't care about others. It means you recognize the limits of your influence and concentrate your efforts where they can actually make a difference on your own character and conduct. Seeing others through the lens of reason, Stoic charity. Why do people act difficultly? The Stoic perspective, inherited partly from Socrates, suggests that people generally don't choose to do wrong knowing it's wrong. Instead, they act based on their own flawed judgments and mistaken beliefs about what is good, useful, or necessary for them. As Marcus Aurelius frequently reminded himself in his meditations, when you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. They are like this because they can't tell good from evil. But I have seen the beauty of good and the ugliness of evil, and have recognized that the wrongdoer has a nature related to my own. I cannot be injured by any of them, for no one can implicate me in ugliness. This isn't about excusing harmful behavior. It's about depersonalizing it. If someone acts rudely, instead of immediately judging, they are attacking me, the Stoic perspective considers, they are acting according to their own, perhaps mistaken, understanding of the world. Their rudeness stems from their own inner state, their own flawed judgments, not necessarily from an accurate assessment of me or a desire to inflict maximal harm. Seeing behavior as a product of ignorance or poor judgment, rather than pure malice directed personally at you, significantly diffuses anger and resentment. It allows for a degree of rational empathy, or at least understanding, without requiring agreement or approval. Maintaining your virtue, protecting your inner citadel. Your primary responsibility in any interaction, especially a difficult one, is to uphold your own character. Don't let someone else's lack of virtue provoke you into abandoning yours. Their anger doesn't require your anger in return. Their dishonesty doesn't necessitate your deceit. Their impatience doesn't demand your frustration. Think of your reason and your capacity for virtuous action as your inner citadel. External events and other people's actions can buffet the walls, but only you can grant them entry by assenting to irrational judgments and reacting with passion rather than reason. Protecting your integrity and responding with wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance, regardless of how the other person behaves, should be your unwavering goal. This is always within your control. Techniques for Stoic interaction. 1. Empathetic understanding. Without emotional contagion. Try to genuinely understand why the other person might be acting the way they are. What might their underlying fears, motivations, or mistaken beliefs be? This doesn't mean you agree with them or excuse their behavior, but understanding the likely source can reduce frustration. Crucially, distinguish this understanding from absorbing their emotional state. You can understand why someone is angry without becoming angry yourself. 2. Objective description. As we discussed in Chapter 3, describe the situation and the other person's behavior in neutral, factual terms in your own mind. They interrupted me mid-sentence rather than, they rudely cut me off because they don't respect me. This creates distance and allows for a more rational assessment. 3. Focus on common ground. Remember your shared humanity. Like you, this person seeks happiness and avoids suffering, even if their methods are misguided. Where possible, appeal to shared reason or common goals. Setting boundaries from a place of reason. Stoicism is not about passive acceptance of mistreatment. Protecting yourself and upholding justice often requires setting clear boundaries. The key difference is how and why these boundaries are set. Non-Stoic. Boundaries set reactively, driven by anger, fear, or hurt, often communicated aggressively or passive-aggressively. Focus is on controlling the other person's behavior. Stoic. Boundaries set proactively and calmly, based on your own rational assessment of what is acceptable and necessary for your well-being and integrity, aligned with justice and temperance. Communicated clearly and firmly, but respectfully. Focuses on controlling your own participation and exposure to harmful behavior. You decide what you will and will not tolerate. You communicate this clearly. This is within your control. How the other person reacts to your boundary is outside your control, and you must be prepared to accept their reaction with equanimity, holding firm to your reasoned position. We're enter practical exercises. 1. Stoic role-playing preparation. Think of an upcoming conversation you anticipate being difficult. Beforehand, script out your approach using Stoic principles. Objective. What is your rational, virtuous goal for this conversation? Your controllables. What specific words, tone, and actions will you employ? Focus on I statements about your needs or perspective. Anticipate uncontrollables. What are the likely reactions or arguments from the other person? Mentally prepare for them without getting emotionally invested. Virtuous responses. How will you respond with reason, calm, and fairness, even if they react poorly? For example, if they raise their voice, I will pause and calmly restate my point. Boundaries. What is your non-negotiable boundary? How will you communicate it clearly and calmly if needed? 2. Practice the view from above. When feeling overwhelmed, frustrated, or angered by an interpersonal conflict, take a few moments for this visualization exercise. Imagine floating up, looking down on the situation from a great height. See yourself and the other persons as tiny figures on a vast landscape. Zoom out further, seeing the city, the country, the continent, the earth as a small ball in the vastness of space. Contemplate the immense scale of time in the universe. This exercise helps gain perspective, shrinks the perceived importance of the immediate conflict, reduce ego, highlights the smallness of individual concerns in the grand scheme. Foster commonality, emphasizes shared humanity facing cosmic indifference. Promote calm, detaches you emotionally from the heat of the moment. Navigating relationships, especially difficult ones, provides constant opportunities to practice Stoicism. By rigorously applying the dichotomy of control, seeking rational understanding, prioritizing your own virtue, setting reasoned boundaries, and utilizing perspective-taking techniques, you can interact with others with greater calm, integrity, and emotional resilience. In the next chapter, we'll shift focus from managing negative emotions to actively cultivating positive states like tranquility and joy. Chapter 8. Building Inner Peace. Cultivating tranquility and joy. For the past several chapters, our focus has largely been on defense learning to manage and dismantle the disruptive emotions like anger, anxiety, sadness, and frustration that so often disturb our peace. We've been building our inner citadel, strengthening its walls against the assaults of irrational judgments. But Stoicism offers more than just a shield. It offers a path toward actively cultivating positive states of being. It's not merely about achieving a grim, white-knuckled endurance of life's difficulties, but about building a profound and stable sense of inner peace, contentment, and even a unique form of joy. This chapter explores how to move beyond simply managing the negative and start intentionally fostering the positive emotional landscape the Stoics aim for. The ultimate goal of Stoic practice is often described as eudaimonia, a Greek term typically translated as flourishing, living well, or human thriving. This isn't fleeting happiness based on external circumstances, but a deeper sense of fulfillment derived from living a life of reason and virtue. A key component of eudaimonia is ataraxia, a state of tranquility, serenity, and freedom from inner disturbance. This isn't a numb apathy, but a calm clarity that arises when we cease being tormented by the passions, pathe. Stoicism, therefore, isn't just about emptying the mind of negatives. It's about cultivating the positive state of ataraxia as the foundation for eudaimonia. Beyond the absence of negativity, the nature of Stoic peace. The inner peace offered by Stoicism is not simply the quiet that follows when the storms of anger or anxiety subside. It's a more robust, positive condition. It's the mental clarity that comes from understanding the world accurately, or as accurately as possible, knowing what is truly good, virtue, and focusing your energy exclusively on what is within your control, your thoughts and actions. It's the confidence that arises from knowing you possess the inner resources, reason, virtue, to handle whatever life throws your way. This tranquility is resilient because it's not dependent on external conditions being perfect, but on the internal state of your own mind, your inner citadel. Finding joy in virtue and simple things. Where does joy fit into this picture? The Stoics identified a specific kind of good emotion, eupatheia, they called hara, often translated as rational joy or delight. Unlike fleeting pleasure derived from external circumstances, which falls under preferred indifference, chara arises directly from the contemplation and practice of virtue itself. There is a deep satisfaction, a stable sense of rightness that comes from acting wisely and making sound judgments, treating others with fairness and kindness, justice, facing challenges with courage and resilience, exercising self-control and moderation, temperance. Because virtue is entirely within our control, this source of joy is always accessible, regardless of external fortune. It's the quiet satisfaction of knowing you are living in accordance with your rational nature and doing your best to be a good human being. This doesn't mean Stoics couldn't appreciate the preferred indifference of life. They could certainly enjoy good health, loving relationships, intellectual pursuits, or the beauty of nature. The key difference lies in non-attachment. They appreciated these things when present, but recognized their impermanent nature and didn't base their core well-being or eudaimonia upon them. This allows for a lighter, less anxious enjoyment of life's gifts, appreciating them fully without the desperate fear of losing them. Joy can be found in simple, everyday things when we view them through this lens of appreciation without desperate clinging. The role of mindfulness and presence, or prosos. We've discussed prososhi, mindfulness or attention, as a tool to counter anxiety's pull into the future. Here we emphasize its role in cultivating positive states. Being fully present in the now is the prerequisite for truly appreciating life as it unfolds. When our minds are lost in rumination about the past or worry about the future, we miss the richness of the present moment, the taste of our food, the warmth of the sun, the details of a conversation, the simple act of breathing. Cultivating presence allows us to notice and savor the small, positive experiences that pepper our daily lives but often go unnoticed. It connects us more deeply to our immediate reality and fosters gratitude for the simple fact of being alive and aware. This mindful appreciation of the present moment is a direct pathway to increase contentment and tranquility, connecting with nature and the cosmos, the view from above. The view from above, which we explored as a tool for perspective in conflict, also serves as a powerful technique for cultivating all connection and tranquility. By contemplating the vastness of nature, the intricate patterns of a leaf, the immensity of the ocean, the silent majesty of the stars, or the sheer scale of the cosmos, we gain several benefits. Perspective. Our personal worries and anxieties shrink in significance when viewed against this immense backdrop. Awe and wonder. Experiencing awe is intrinsically rewarding and can shift our emotional state towards humility and appreciation. Connection. Contemplating our place within the larger natural or cosmic order can foster a sense of belonging and reduce feelings of isolation. Acceptance. Observing the natural cycles of growth, decay, and change can reinforce acceptance of impermanence and the natural flow of life, aligning with the Stoic embrace of fate, amor fati. Regularly taking time to connect with nature or contemplate the cosmos can be a profound source of inner peace and perspective. How emotional mastery leads to stable contentment. The skills you've been developing throughout this book, identifying and challenging faulty judgments, managing anger, dissolving anxiety, navigating disappointment, dealing with others rationally directly contribute to building a more stable and positive baseline emotional state. When you are less frequently thrown off balance by negative passions, your natural state tends towards greater calm, clarity, and contentment. Ataraxia. You free up mental energy previously consumed by emotional turmoil, allowing more space for rational thought, virtuous action, and the appreciation of life. Mastering the negative is the essential groundwork for cultivating the positive. Practical exercises. 1. Daily gratitude. Practice. Make gratitude an intentional habit. Each day, identify 3-5 specific things you are grateful for. Don't just list generalities. My family. Be specific. The way my partner smiled at me this morning. The taste of my coffee. The ability to walk outside. You can keep a gratitude journal. Have a gratitude jar where you write down things daily or weekly. Take a few minutes each morning or evening for a mental gratitude scan. Express your gratitude directly to others when appropriate. Consistency and specificity are key to rewiring your brain to notice the good. 2. Mindful sensory focus. 5 minutes. Choose a simple daily activity. For example, drinking a cup of tea, washing your hands, walking outside, listening to a piece of music, and commit to bringing your full attention to the sensory details for 5 minutes. Sight. Notice colors, shapes, light, movement. Sound. Listen to all the layers of sound, near and far, without judgment. Smell. Notice any scents in the air. And taste. If eating or drinking, savor the flavors and textures slowly. Touch. Feel the temperature, texture, pressure sensations. For example, feet on the ground, hands holding a cup. When your mind wanders, as it inevitably will, gently acknowledge the thought and redirect your attention back to your chosen sensory focus. This exercise trains your presence muscle. Building inner peace and cultivating rational joy are active processes. They flow naturally from living virtuously, understanding the world rationally, appreciating the present moment, maintaining perspective, and practicing gratitude. Stoicism provides not just a refuge from suffering, but a blueprint for constructing a resilient and deeply fulfilling inner life. The final chapters will focus on integrating these practices into a sustainable, lifelong habit. Chapter 9. Making Stoicism Stick Daily Practices for Lasting Change. Throughout this book, we've journeyed through the core principles of Stoicism, explored techniques for managing disruptive emotions like anger, anxiety, and disappointment, and discussed how to cultivate inner peace and rational joy. You now possess a powerful conceptual toolkit for emotional mastery. However, as the Stoics themselves constantly emphasized, philosophy is not merely about understanding abstract ideas. It's about living them. Knowledge alone doesn't transform us. Consistent practice does. This chapter is dedicated to bridging the gap between theory and application, exploring how to integrate Stoic practices into your daily routine so they become ingrained habits, leading to lasting change and a more resilient, tranquil life. Philosophy is a way of life, not a quick fix. Think of learning Stoicism like learning a musical instrument or training for a marathon. You wouldn't expect to become proficient after just reading a book or attending a single workshop. Mastery requires dedicated, regular practice. Similarly, Stoicism isn't a magic pill to be taken only during moments of crisis. It's intended as an ongoing, daily discipline and operating system for your mind that guides your thoughts, judgments, and actions consistently. Lasting emotional change doesn't happen overnight. It comes from gradually reshaping your habitual patterns of thinking and reacting. This requires conscious effort and repetition until the Stoic perspectives and responses become more automatic, more ingrained in your character. Like building muscle, building resilience and tranquility takes time and consistent effort. Don't be discouraged if progress feels slow. Focus on the process, the daily practice itself. Structuring a Stoic routine. Morning and evening rituals. Having a structured routine can be incredibly helpful in making Stoic practice a consistent part of your life. Two key anchor points are the beginning and the end of your day. 1. Morning preparation, setting the course. How you start your day often sets the tone for the hours that follow. Dedicating even just 15 minutes in the morning to align yourself with Stoic principles can make a significant difference. Consider incorporating some of these elements. Review core principles. Briefly remind yourself of key ideas like the dichotomy of control. Focus on what's up to me. Virtue as the sole good, or the link between judgments and emotions. You might read a favorite quote from Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, or Seneca. Premeditatio malorum, brief version. Contemplate potential challenges or difficulties you might face during the day. For example, a difficult meeting, traffic, feeling tired. Mentally rehearse how you intend to respond virtuously with patience, reason, courage, and focusing on your controllable actions. This prepares you and lessens the impact if challenges arise. Set virtuous intentions. Define 1. 3 specific ways you intend to act virtuously today. Examples. Today I will strive to listen patiently without interrupting. I will tackle my most challenging task with courage. I will consciously look for opportunities to be fair and kind. I will accept minor annoyances without complaint. Make them concrete. Gratitude. Briefly call to mind a few specific things you are grateful for, as discussed in Chapter 8. Starting the day with gratitude shifts your focus towards abundance rather than lack. 2. Evening review, reflection and learning. The end of the day offers a valuable opportunity for reflection and learning. a practice strongly advocated by Stoics like Seneca and Epictetus. Before sleep, take 15 minutes to review your day objectively, not with harsh self-criticism, but with a desire to learn and improve. Objective. Recap. Briefly run through the day's significant events. Stoic journaling, questioning. Ask yourself questions like, what faulty judgments did I make today? Where did my emotions get the better of me? What did I do well today in terms of acting virtuously, wisely, justly, courageously, temperately? Where did I fall short? What could I have done differently in specific situations? Did I adhere to my intentions? Did I focus on what was within my control? What opportunities for virtue did I seize or miss? What can I learn from today's experiences to do better tomorrow? Acknowledge progress. Note areas where you successfully applied Stoic principles, reinforcing positive changes. Reaffirm intentions for tomorrow. Optional. Briefly consider any lessons learned that you want to carry into the next day. This evening review isn't about beating yourself up over mistakes. It's about honest self-assessment, extracting lessons, and reinforcing your commitment to living more rationally and virtuously. Integrating Stoic reminders throughout the day. While morning and evening routines are powerful anchors, Stoic practice should ideally permeate your entire day. Here are ways to keep the principles alive during your waking hours. Use triggers. Identify common situations that trigger negative emotions. For example, feeling stressed, getting interrupted, hitting traffic. Use the trigger itself as a reminder to pause, breathe, and apply a relevant Stoic principle. For example, is this in my control? Is this worth my peace? Mental check-ins. Use transitional moments. For example, starting your commute before entering a meeting, waiting in line. For brief mental check-ins, ask, am I present? Am I focusing on my controllables? Am I approaching this next task with reason? Environmental reminders. Place subtle reminders in your environment, a meaningful quote on a sticky note, a specific object on your desk, a phone wallpaper that prompts you to recall Stoic ideas. Practice mindfulness. Prosoch. Intentionally bring full attention to routine activities, walking, eating, listening, as discussed in the previous chapter. This strengthens your ability to stay present and manage your thoughts. The value of reading. Stoic texts. Continuously engaging with Stoic philosophy through reading is invaluable. Returning to the original texts, Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, Epictetus's Discourses in Enchiridion, Seneca's Letters and Essays, or high-quality modern interpretations keeps the principles fresh, provides new insights, and offers ongoing inspiration. Treat these texts not as academic subjects to be mastered once, but as lifelong companions and guides. Even reading a single passage or quote each day can reinforce your practice. Community and accountability. Optional but helpful. While Stoicism is ultimately an individual practice focused on your inner state, sharing the journey with others can be beneficial. Discussing concepts with like-minded friends, joining an online forum or local group, or having an accountability partner can provide clarification of ideas, motivation, and encouragement. different perspectives on applying principles, a sense of shared endeavor, practical exercise. Design your personal Stoic daily practice. Template. Now it's time to create your own sustainable daily routine. Remember to start small and be realistic. Consistency is more important than intensity, especially initially. Use the following template as a starting point and customize it to fit your schedule and preferences. My Stoic daily practice plan. Morning routine, target time for one. For example, 10 minutes. Moment of quiet, breathing, 1 minute. Read Stoic, quote principle. Focus, for example, dichotomy of control. 2 mins. Brief negative visualization. Consider 1. 2 potential challenges today, 2 mins. Set virtuous intentions. 1. 3 specific goals. For example, patience in traffic, focus on task X. 2 mins. Gratitude moment. List 3 specific things, 3 mins. Throughout the day, reminders. Trigger 1. For example, feeling overwhelmed. Reminder. For example, pause, breathe, identify 1 controllable action. Trigger 2. For example, waiting in line. Reminder. For example, practice presence observation. Mindful activity. Practice prosoche during, for example, lunch break. Evening routine. Target time, for example, 10 minutes. Objective day. Review. Brief mental scan. 2 mins. Journaling key questions. What went well virtuously? What poorly? What learned? 5 mins. Acknowledge progress, effort. 1 minute. Read brief Stoic passage. 2 mins. Review and adjust. Review this plan weekly. What's working? What's challenging? Adjust as needed. Be flexible and compassionate with yourself. Making Stoicism stick is about weaving these small, intentional practices into the rhythm of your life. It's a commitment to ongoing self-improvement, a gradual strengthening of your inner citadel. Be patient, be persistent, and trust the process. The final chapter will offer some concluding thoughts on this lifelong journey. Chapter 10. The Lifelong Path. Integrating Stoicism for lasting emotional freedom. We have reached the end of our journey together through the principles and practices of Stoicism as a path to mastering your emotions. We began by acknowledging the common human struggle with feelings that seem to hijack our peace and rationality. We explored the foundational Stoic insight that it's not events themselves, but our judgments about them that truly disturb us. From there, we built a toolkit of powerful ideas and techniques designed to help you navigate the often turbulent waters of your inner life with greater calm, clarity, and resilience. A recap of your Stoic toolkit. Let's briefly revisit the key landmarks of our exploration. The dichotomy of control, the cornerstone principle distinguishing between what is truly up to us, our judgments, intentions, actions, and what is not, externals, outcomes, others' actions, and focusing our energy solely on the former. Judgments as the root of emotion. Understanding how our interpretations, beliefs, and the stories we tell ourselves generate our emotional responses, particularly the disruptive passions. Virtue as the sole good. recognizing that true fulfillment, eudaimonia, comes from cultivating wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance, rather than chasing external preferred indifference like wealth, health, or reputation. Living according to reason and nature, aligning our actions with our innate human capacity for reason and our social nature. Practical techniques. We learn specific strategies for managing anger, pausing, reframing, premeditation, dissolving anxiety and fear, negative visualization, focusing on the present, amor fati, fear setting, handling sadness and disappointment, acceptance, finding opportunity, gratitude, and navigating relationships, rational empathy, boundary setting, the view from above. Cultivating positive states. We saw that Stoicism aims not just to eliminate negatives, but to foster positive states like tranquility, ataraxia, and rational joy, chara, through presence, prosos, perspective, and gratitude. The power of practice. We emphasize that Stoicism is a way of life requiring consistent daily effort, structured through routines like morning preparation and evening review. You now possess a comprehensive understanding of how Stoicism offers a practical, empowering framework for achieving greater emotional freedom. A journey, not a destination. Embracing imperfection. It is crucial to understand that mastering Stoicism, like mastering any profound skill or philosophy, is a lifelong journey, not a destination. The Stoics themselves spoke of the sage, the hypothetical perfect Stoic, who always acts virtuously and rationally as an ideal to strive towards, not a status easily attained. There will be days when you react angrily despite your best intentions. There will be times when anxiety creeps back in. You will make flawed judgments. You will occasionally forget your principles in the heat of the moment. This is perfectly normal. It is part of the human condition, part of the learning process. The goal is not unattainable perfection, but progress. It's about consistently applying the principles, learning from your setbacks, and gradually strengthening your capacity for reason and resilience over time. When you stumble, and you don't engage in harsh self-criticism, which is often just another unhelpful judgment. Instead, apply Stoic principles to the setback itself. Objectively analyze what happened and what judgments led you astray. Identify what was within your control, your reaction, and what wasn't. Extract the lesson with wisdom. Reaffirm your commitment to practice, exercising courage to try again. Treat yourself with the same rational understanding you strive to offer others who err out of flawed judgment. Embrace the process. The path is the practice. Every effort to pause, question a judgment, choose a virtuous response, or reflect on your day is a step forward on this lifelong path. The expanding ripples. Long-term benefits of Stoic practice. While our focus has been on emotional mastery, the benefits of consistently practicing Stoicism ripple outward into many areas of life. Enhanced resilience. You become better equipped to handle life's inevitable challenges, setbacks, and losses without being emotionally devastated. Adversity becomes less terrifying and more like training material for your character. Improved decision-making. By learning to pause, think rationally, and avoid being swayed by disruptive emotions, you make clearer, more effective decisions aligned with your values. Stronger, more harmonious relationships. Interacting with others from a place of reason, empathy without contagion, and clear boundaries leads to less conflict and deeper connections. Increased focus and productivity. Less mental energy wasted on unproductive worry, anger, or rumination frees up cognitive resources for focused work and pursuing meaningful goals. Deeper sense of purpose and meaning. Anchoring your self-worth to internal virtue rather than external validation provides a stable inner compass and a profound sense of living a life of meaning and integrity. Greater inner peace. The cumulative effect of all these practices is a more frequent and stable experience of tranquility, ataraxia, a quiet confidence and calm that underlies the ups and downs of daily life. Your journey forward. Keep practicing, keep learning. The tools and understanding are now yours. The challenge and opportunity lie in consistently applying them. Continue with your daily practices, the morning preparation, the evening review, the mindful moments throughout the day. Be patient with yourself. Celebrate small victories and learn from every stumble. To support your ongoing journey, continue to engage with Stoic wisdom. Resources for further learning. Primary texts, the originals. Marcus Aurelius. Meditations, personal reflections and self-guidance from a Roman emperor. Aphoristic and deeply insightful. Epictetus. Discourses in Enchiridion. Handbook. Transcribed lectures from a former slave turned influential teacher. Direct, challenging, and highly practical. Seneca the Younger. Letters from a Stoic on the shortness of life, on anger, etc. Essays and letters from a statesman and playwright, eloquent, practical, and covers a wide range of human concerns. Reliable modern authors and interpretations. Look for authors who engage deeply with the original philosophy. Massimo Pigliucci, How to Be a Stoic, A Field Guide to a Happy Life. A philosopher and scientist providing clear explanations. Donald Robertson, How to Think Like a Roman Emperor, Stoicism and the Art of Happiness. A cognitive behavioral therapist linking Stoicism to modern psychology. Ryan Holiday, The Obstacle is the Way, Ego is the Enemy, The Daily Stoic. Popular works making Stoicism accessible and applicable to modern challenges. William B. Irvin, A Guide to the Good Life, The Ancient Art of Stoic Joy, explores Stoicism as a practical philosophy for achieving tranquility. Online communities and websites. Exercise discernment as quality varies. Modern Stoicism. modernstoicism.com, a non-profit organization with articles, resources, and information about Stoic Week. Daily Stoic, dailystoic.com, website run by Ryan Holiday with daily emails, articles, and podcast episodes. Reputable online forums or groups, for example, specific subreddits or Facebook groups focused on traditional Stoicism, can offer discussion and support. This book has aimed to provide you with a practical guide to using Stoicism to master your emotions. But the real work, the real adventure, begins now as you integrate these timeless principles into the unique context of your own life. Embrace the path with courage and reason. The journey towards emotional freedom, resilience, and inner peace is one of the most worthwhile endeavors you can undertake. May you walk it well.